You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast. We talk with adventurers from around the globe to give you the inspiration you need to get started in the outdoors or keep moving if you're already there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. This is Caleb. I am pleased to announce that as of today, that is January 13th, my dad, Kurt, has successfully landed in Tanzania and will, I believe tomorrow, begin the long trek, the expedition to climb Mount Kilimanjaro as part of the fundraiser for We See Hope. While he's gone, I'll be stepping in a little bit more to do a few of the other episodes in addition to the Friday Revisited episodes. And as I hear news, I will of course keep you all updated and let you know what he's up to. In today's Revisited episode, Mason interviews Greg Robidoux. And this is a short but really powerful and impactful episode with lots of great stories about Robidoux mountain bike racing in Pakistan in the Himalayas, from food poisoning to terrorist hideouts. This episode has a little bit of everything. I hope you enjoy it. Here's Mason.
All right, folks. Today, very interesting episode. Something I'm excited to hear about. I hear there's some good stories in here as well. We're going to be talking about cycling in Pakistan, cycling in the Himalayas, just cycling in these different places and some cool stories associated with it. Greg Robidoux, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. So I always ask this first. Where are you coming from? And is that home? And if not, where's home?
So born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts. Somehow I've avoided the Boston accent for the most part.
I was going to say, you're born and raised. I didn't realize that. Well, what did you grow up doing? You know, being there, folks heard in the intro, you do, physical, some training now, so some physical therapy, you're in the cycling world. But what did you grow up doing? Did you play sports? Did you go outside a lot as a family? And how did you get into it?
Yeah, I had kind of a unique childhood. Unfortunately, my mother was very sick when I was young. She fought breast cancer for 8 years and died in 1986. I was the age of 11 at that point. And my dad raised myself and my sister. He really instilled upon us a good athletic background. My sister was a very accomplished dancer. Myself, I was soccer, basketball, baseball in high school. I played Division I soccer in college. I found cycling kind of late, actually, in comparison to a lot of people that, cycled competitively. I was in my early 20s. I had gotten out of school, was doing some running, some marathon running. As a physical therapist, I realized that I was kind of beating myself up a little bit and decided to find, some cross training, and I found a bicycle and got on that bicycle and never looked back. That was it for me. Raced competitively through kind of early to mid 20s into my mid to late 30s, and then did buy a house, raise a family, all that kind of stuff. And the ironic thing about a lot of this is that, working in the cycling industry and treating cyclists, somehow, oftentimes it happens, the deeper you get into the industry, the less time you have to ride. I still
Oh
ride.
my gosh, man. I can't tell you how many times we've heard that here. It's so true. It's like, people are like, oh, you do adventures all the time. You host the show. Yeah, you'd think. I'm in a closet half the time listening to folks talk about adventures, which I'm happy to do. But yes, continue. Sorry.
No, that's all right. And so I get a lot of enjoyment out of helping cyclists. I still love riding. I still love maybe being competitive with myself at this point. And my kids are getting older. I hope to someday get back to doing some masters racing, but at this point, it's more just riding for fun, riding with the kids. My 5-year-old learned to ride at 4 years old last summer. We were up in Vermont for the summer, riding mountain bikes every day, and she went from a combination of balance bike and training wheels to hitting the jump track on her little pink Specialized within like a week. Fearless. She's a fierce little lady.
How cool was it to see that?
it was phenomenally cool. I mean, my son is getting to be quite the rider himself, and so he chases his mom around, who's a very accomplished mountain biker herself. In all honesty, my wife is a better mountain biker than I am. I always historically brought good road fitness, and that got me through mountain biking. But I tend to bash and crash my way through the woods with a big grin on my face. But that's
my style.
I'm not. I don't think I have a lot of mountain bike finesse. Let's put it that way.
I see people riding, and they're just flowing through the woods, and I can't agree more, man. I feel like I just crash through the woods, and I fall a lot, and I get out the other side, and I'm beat up. I feel accomplished, but I wouldn't want to see video of it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I make it look hard. I'm
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get better over time. That's for sure. That's hilarious, though. Well, that's really cool that your whole family is kind of into it. It sounds like y'all are primarily mountain bikers, or is it a mixture of road and bike or
it's a mixture of everything. I was primarily a roadie, and when I met my wife, we met doing cyclocross. So that's kind of in between, right? She was primarily a mountain biker. Racing on the mountain bike circuit, and I was primarily a roadie, and we met doing cyclocross. She's actually the one that dragged me off to Pakistan. So
yeah, I was going to say cycling's taken you to some pretty incredible places. Tell us about this experience.
So this experience was a lot of fun. So this is earlier on. I had met my wife, Roz, a spectacular woman, and she basically said, like, if you're going to hang with me, you got to ride a mountain bike, none of this road bike. And so I got a mountain bike and started riding with her, and did relatively well in the competitive realm, just because I brought good road fitness. I was a good time trialist. That was really my specialty. So, in many cross country races aren't super technical. So I was able to just kind of put my head down and drag race through a lot of them. And so she came across this opportunity to go race in Pakistan, and they were looking for an American team, a team of 5 people. You had to submit a race resume. And so she, we had seen this, and she's like, all right, you got to start doing as many races as you can, because we're going to put our hat in the ring for this. Long story short is that I did a bunch of races. I had some success, and we sent our resumes off. We put a team of 5 together. So it was three men, 2 women, my wife included. And they said, yeah, we'd love to have you. So it was, I can't remember, it was 8 or 12 different countries represented. And this was the Tour of the Himalayas, essentially a benefit race because of the earthquake in Pakistan in 2005. There was a massive earthquake there, like 8.2 or something like that. And unfortunately, in the Kagan Valley, there was a school that was there. And I believe the earthquake hit it like just past 9 in the morning. And all the kids were in the school, and none of them survived. And so some prominent business people in the area had put together this race and did it as a fundraising event for this school, to create a school, which is still there and still going strong, by the way, Kagan Valley Memorial Trust. I remember, I had traveled a bit, but just like really, the usual suspects, right? Europe and, gone to France and things like that. I hadn't really done any, what I would term to be adventurous travel at that point in time. And I remember getting the acceptance that we were going to go and having all the arrangements made, and then breaking it to my father, who didn't travel a lot, and saying, well, I'm going to be doing this Tour of the Himalayas thing. It's like, wow, that's really cool. That's great. It's great. A couple of days goes by, and he goes, where in the Himalayas? I'm like, oh, in the Himalayan mountains, like near K2, that kind of an area. It's like, oh, okay. And then another couple of days go by, and he must have gotten his globe out or something. And he's like, where exactly are you going? I'm like, well, I'm going to Pakistan. And he lost his mind. What are you doing? It's crazy. It wasn't the most stable place in the world at that point in time. There was a lot of Taliban. That was more on the Afghan border, and we were going to be northeast of. So we, essentially flew into Islamabad and went north and east towards the border of China, really, China, Nepal. So we weren't really near that stuff, or at least, we thought at the time. It was quite the adventure. We had made a trip out of it. So we went to We stayed about a week or two in Dubai, did some riding there, had some pretty crazy adventures in Dubai, and then off to Pakistan. I remember that moment coming off the plane, and at that point in time, we were really considered, professional athletes, and we were treated as such. So they had, some ambassador type folks that met us at the, at walking off the plane, and they, sweeped us through customs and all that kind of stuff. One of the crazy things that had happened in all of that travel was that somebody had run over my bicycle with a vehicle of some sort.
Oh, jeez.
And completely tacoed my rear wheel. I was riding a Gary Fisher Paragon, which was one of the first 29ers, and didn't have great access to mountain bikes, much less a 29-inch wheel for a mountain bike in Pakistan. They did have some donated BMCs and what I ended up doing was I ended up pulling a wheel off of one of those, and so I did the whole race in what's called a 69er. So I had a 29-inch wheel on the front and a 26-inch wheel on the back, which made climbing a little bit difficult because the bike was already tilted uphill every time I was on it. So, and the whole race was primarily a climbing race.
Oh, man.
So the race itself was started in a little town called Naran, which was in the Kegon Valley. The first day was the biggest stage. So it was a 3-stage race. First day was 80 Ks up over the Babasur Pass, which was up, 15,000 feet elevation. And we started in the valley that day at about 9,000 feet. This is where one of the more entertaining stories from this trip happened.
Oh, man. Well, can I ask you, before you get into that, can I ask this? Yeah. How frustrating was it that your wheel got smashed? Like, that's a huge deal that could really have just devastated you in the sense of, I got to ride this wonky looking bike. What were your spirits about that going into it? Were you pretty positive, or?
I was, in all honesty, I was really excited to be there and to have the opportunity to race with some, quite frankly, some folks that were way better than myself. But the reality was that my options were to ride this BMC, which, although it was a very nice offer, it was a complete piece of junk in comparison to what I was riding. I had this light, hardtail race bike, this thing that they were, going to give to me was something like a 35-pound, really base model mountain bike with, crummy suspension and all that kind of stuff. And, it's like, all right, well, I'll just suck it up. I'm here. It's an adventure. Let's just one more layer of the adventure. Right.
It makes a heck of a story, 15 years later. So
yeah,
it's worth it.
So it was definitely worth it. I don't know if I would have said that in some of the climbing stretches
No. You need a good decade for it to be worth it.
Yeah. So we had been there for several days prior to the start of the race, just kind of acclimatizing and doing some, some light rides and some media stuff and things like that. The typical day was something like, you get up, you have spicy beans and rice and maybe some chicken or goat or something like that. That was kind of what was on the menu, and it was delicious. But that was pretty much the meal at every mealtime. And then the night before the race, they had set up a banquet for us, and they changed up the menu. They had done this kind of like General Gao's chicken kind of a thing. And yeah, so pretty much everybody that ate it, except for the vegetarians there, got violently ill. Like, we all started the race the next day with severe food poisoning. So the race was, we were all, they bring us to where the start of the race is going to be. And there's like one little shack that has a toilet in it. And we're all in a giant line waiting to get into the toilet and try to just get everything.
Geez.
Not pretty at all. Right. And the upside is that everybody except for the vegetarians were suffering, and they were yucking it up because they were like, you see, this is why we do this.
Right.
But anyway, we all get our business done. We get to the starting line, and then, race day just kicks in. Right. And so we all take off, and it's just a climb out of the gate. So we're just climbing from about 9,000 up to a little over 14,000 feet. It's not hard. It's like Jeep track and goat track. So it's not super technical riding, but it's hard riding. And
it looked pretty rocky.
It's very rocky. And a lot of like sheer cliffs, so that although some of these tracks were, relatively well established, there's like 1,000-foot drop off on the side. And so, you'd be riding along and then somebody'd pull off and, be getting sick. And then, they'd have to try to jump back in the pack and keep going. And so that you'd see somebody pop off every now and then, and you knew that their belly had just gone south, right? I made it all the way to the top of the climb. They had brought some porters up there, and they were giving us like newspaper and stuff to kind of shove into our jerseys for the descent, because we had climbed for over an hour, and then the descent was like epic. There was a lot of sheer drops off the edge, and you just didn't really look, but you were going like 40 miles an hour on your mountain bike, and you're like, just don't look at the edge, just
Wow. So was the newspaper for padding, or was it to keep you warm?
Put it under your jersey just to keep it's almost like a windbreaker, right? So that you're not, because when we left the valley to start, it was probably like 68 degrees. It was snowing when we got to the top of the climb. It was pretty chilly for the first 20 minutes of that descent, and I'd gotten over the top. I had been suffering a little bit, but felt like things were leveling off, and I was just finding my groove. And at this point in time, I'm like mid-pack at best. I was kind of happy to be there at that point in time. Like I'd been suffering. My belly was not feeling good. I'm like, all right, this is an adventure. This is just, I'm having fun. I had a big smile on my face for the most of it, for the most part. I remember my girlfriend, my wife now, she had been so sick that she actually did not start. But what she did is that she went reverse on the course to try to meet some of the American, some of us coming in from the other side. So I'd gotten around, we'd gotten back down into the valley. I'm racing towards the finish line, and I see her off in the distance, and she meets, and she's kind of like riding me in towards the finish. All of a sudden, my stomach went completely sideways. I'll set the stage for you. Like I dismounted my bike like I was coming up at a cyclocross barrier. This was urgent, like very urgent. And they had given us these jerseys that we were wearing that weren't full zip jerseys. They were like 3/4 zip jerseys. And I'm tearing at the jersey trying to get it off, like throwing my, helmet and my Camelback and all that kind of stuff, and just trying to get my clothes off so I can get what's in me out of me. And I stop. I'm doing my business. My wife is there, and she's like, hey, she had kind of taken a look around and said, yeah, did you notice that there's a village right there, and there's a whole bunch of people walking this way? And I'm like, I can't even hear what she's saying because it's just like coming out of me, right? She's like, oh, yep, nope, they're coming. They're all walking this way. Can you finish up? I'm like, I'm doing the best I can. I'm like, I don't have a lot of control right now. The group of them stop about 50 yards from where I'm sitting or squatting. And this one woman keeps walking, and she stops uncomfortably close to where I am. Now, mind you, I am a skinny cyclist with like the cyclist stripes at this point in time, like super dark tan arms. But now I've ripped my shirt off. I've got my bibs around my ankles, and I'm just evacuating all over her front yard, essentially. And she literally stops. And I've got like, I'm not looking over my shoulder because she's sort of behind me. My wife is kind of like, you need to finish up because I think you're pooping in the front yard. And,
Holy cow, man.
So I do my business. I get, back on the bike as fast as I can, and we get out of there. But I swear to God that I'm sure that village still talks about the alien that landed in their front yard and pooped in their front yard.
Yeah, I bet it didn't go too well for their opinion on travelers.
Yeah.
Hey friends, I want to take a minute to tell you about Campfire Ranch. My friend Sam started Campfire Ranch several years ago, and his goal, his mission, is to energize places by creating meaningful human experiences in the outdoors. At all of the Campfire Ranch locations, from their campgrounds to trailside lodges to backcountry huts, their goal is to help you stay in the place and in the way that you want so that you can spend more time getting out there and getting after it. Campfire Ranch Little Sugar is a trailside lodge located in Bella Vista, Arkansas, just north of Bentonville, the mountain bike capital of the world. The lodge features 7 private bedrooms with ensuite bathrooms and communal spaces for gathering, meeting with others, and relaxing after a long day on the trails. Little Sugar has immediate access to 160-plus miles of public trails designed for mountain biking, gravel biking, trail running, and hiking, and it also has easy access to the food, art, and music scene of downtown Bentonville. So grab some buddies and go to www.campfireranch.co/ASP. That's not .com, it's .co/ASP, and you'll get 15% off nightly base rates at Little Sugar in Bella Vista, Arkansas. And this opportunity is valid all the way through 2026. But you know how these things go. Your weekend is going to fill up quickly, so go right now to campfireranch.co/ASP to plan your big adventure.
Oh my gosh, man!
But I made it. I made it to the end of the race. I wasn't last, and that was how we started. That was our first stage.
Oh my! At least everyone else was kind of going through it too, other than the vegetarians. But that is rough.
Yeah, it was. It was something that we all laughed about quite a bit after the fact. Mostly at my expense, but that was totally fine.
That's another one of those stories you need a good decade in between when it happened and looking back to really think of it as a fun memory.
Yeah.
You also went by some other pretty interesting places too. You sent me a picture before the interview about being really close to like a hideout.
Yeah. So that was actually on our way to Naran. So we flew into Islamabad, and we had to take the Karakoram Highway up to Naran, and this basically is a one way in, one way out road. We were in these big vans, and they were transporting us, and it was like I don't know, like an 9-hour drive, because if you've ever seen some of these images of cars kind of basically dangling off the side of a cliff and they're trying to pass each other, that's this highway. There's landslides all the time, and so that it's possible to be trying to get somewhere, have a landslide, and then just be stuck there for a week while they clear out the landslide. But on our way, we stopped to stretch our legs in a suburb of Islamabad called Abbottabad. We just happened to pull over. There was a little roadside stand. They were selling like roasted corn, and we were all like, yeah, let's go grab some of that. And I pretty much had my camera attached to my hip at that point in time. I'm just snapping pictures all over the place. And we had pulled over, and I looked over to my right, and there was this huge, like, Russian era jet on a pedestal with a couple of guys sitting underneath it and, using it for shade. And I was like, holy cow, that's cool. Look at that jet. So I clipped a picture of it. And then, quite honestly, I'd more or less forgotten about the picture. And some years later, they had released the information about Osama bin Laden being, captured, killed by the Navy SEALs. And they declassified that, and that information came out. And they said, well, he was hiding in plain sight in Abbottabad. And I was like, whoa, Abbottabad. And I looked at the timeline, and I was like, oh, see, I was there in 2007. So was he. Wow, that's crazy. And so I got onto Google Earth, and I was like, wonder if that jet is still there. So I started looking at Google Earth and seeing if I could find that jet in Abbottabad. And sure enough, the corner that I took that picture on was about less than a third of a mile from the bin Laden compound. So it was right on the corner. The reason the jet was there is because it was a military academy. And his compound was like right down the street from there. So that, a few years later, all my friends were teasing me that I had the biggest bounty fail ever, because it was like a multi-million-dollar price on the guy's head. And I, as an American, I was within a half or a third of a mile of the guy. Didn't even know it.
Should have went in and said, hey, I really need to use your bathroom.
I'm not sure that would have gone well for me, but
right. Okay, yeah. No kidding. That's a wild story. What did that feel like? Did you, was there any sort of understanding that he might be around, or is that just totally out of the blue for you?
Yeah, I had talked about my father having fears about me traveling there. And so that there was there were active things going on there. And actually, what was scarier than that was that we had a banquet the final night in Pakistan, and we had gone to what was kind of the American hotel there, and they had a well-known Thai food restaurant. If you ever watched the movie Zero Dark 30, the protagonist, the female protagonist in that movie, she's having food in that exact restaurant, and the restaurant blows up. Almost a year to the day that we had our final banquet meal there, that was blown up by a truck bomb, rode through the gate and exploded. It blew off the whole front of that hotel. So that was relatively disturbing, knowing that I had sat in that spot where that bomb had gone off was crazy to me.
Yeah, that can definitely feel unsettling. Oh my gosh, how unfortunate. So that's some of the crazy stuff from the trip. Did the rest of the trip feel that intense, or was it, you were either dealing with sickness or with military operations? What else was going on?
Once all of our bellies settled down and we just kind of settled into the race, it was like any other race. I mean, it was epic with regards to the terrain and the getting there, and all the sights and smells and the people. And I have to say, I mean, the Pakistani people were amazing. I mean, I think you hear this so many times over, but you go to a place and you see all these folks that have next to nothing, and they're willing to share everything that they have with you. It's really remarkable, and it's a humbling experience, and one that stuck with me to this day. Being able to experience that, being able to see people that were still displaced in 2007 from the 2005 earthquake, and those folks were saying, "Can we give you some food? Can we take care of you? Can we share what we have with you?" That's remarkable. That's humbling, and it's a I feel like it's a real privilege to have experienced that. Not just experienced it for the sake of experiencing it, but experiencing it for the sake of understanding life a little bit better, and what's really important, and those connections to the different people that you meet and the experiences that you have with something like that event. I still talk to some of the folks that we raced with back in 2007. They're all really good people, and we had such a good experience. And it really brings me joy to know that what we did had an impact that's still lasting today. And there's a school that we were able to help build with the money that we raised. And that school is still educating children, and children are benefiting from that today. That's a big deal. And that races are fun. We all get into the competition of that stuff. But when an event like that has a deeper meaning, has the potential to not only change your life because of, something that you love doing in a race that, you got to be a part of and got to compete in, and all that's very exciting. But to know that had a deeper impact and that has a ripple effect even to present day is pretty remarkable. And I think that's one of the things that has always stayed with me.
That's amazing. The combination of adventure with purpose through, fundraising efforts of some sort, or some sort of purpose like that. I think it's one of the greatest combinations in the world. It's like peanut butter and chocolate. It's just, it is so, for our lives and how modern and civilized they are, and how, frankly, survival's not an issue anymore. We can do these purpose-driven things. I think that combination is amazing, and to hear someone else say that and reiterate that is awesome. What is anything else you'd like to share about the experience or what you've done after?
Yeah, so I remember, as far as that race is concerned, I mean, the first day was pretty epic with regards to how massive it was. It was just like 80 Ks on a mountain bike, all over the place. We're all sick, we're all struggling. But the second day, essentially what amounted to like a circuit race around this big glacial lake. And I had just never seen or even raced in a environment like that. And the images from that, I still see in my head. And just, I remember kind of being on my bike and and just pinching myself, saying like, wow, like this is a real epic adventure. And then the last day of racing, I really struggled. I just really suffered. The last day was essentially an uphill time trial. If you remember, I had a 69er, so that my bike had a bigger front tire and a smaller rear tire, which basically made it feel like I was going uphill already. But there were sections of this climb that were super steep, to the point where you had to like almost be laying on your handlebars in order to keep the bike from tipping backwards. And my bike just wanted to go pop a wheelie every time I got on it, because the geometry of the bike wasn't suited to have the rear wheel smaller than the front wheel.
The downhills, though. Hey.
Oh, the downhills are great. But that day we didn't have any. So I was like,
Ooh.
It was just a climb. And I'm good at a lot of things on a bicycle. Climbing has always been my Achilles heel. So I suffered that day. Suffered a lot. Again, I don't think I was the last one, but I was close to the back of the pack on that day. And I think some of that was that, the altitude had really gotten to me at that point. So normally you go and you acclimatize for about 2 weeks before an event like that. We did it the absolute worst way. I think we were there like 3 or 4 days in advance. Yeah, you don't want to do that. That's like, from a physiological standpoint, that's like the worst possible time. But that was just our timing. That was just how we had to do it. And so, many of us were suffering from the effects of altitude at that point.
Just sounds like a sufferfest in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but again, it was one of those suffer fests with a smile on your face. So it was a wonderful opportunity. And events like that are one of the things that has really fueled me to help cyclists, to treat cyclists, to do the stuff that I do with regards to my current business, my current passions. So I treat cyclists and triathletes exclusively. That's my as a physical therapist there who I'm treating. And then I own a company called the Serrata International Cycling Institute, and I teach biomechanics of cycling and bicycle fit certification. So hopefully making more people comfortable on bicycles and performing better and doing all of those things, is a way to give back to the sport that brought me a lot of joy and continues to bring me a lot of joy, not only through events like that, but even just, simply throwing my leg over my bike with my kids and being able to ride down the road and see their enjoyment of the sport, and we're not pushing them to race or to do anything like that. It's just be on two wheels and have the freedom of the wind in your hair and the enjoyment of riding a bicycle. So, that passion has, permeated what I do for a living and what I've, had the opportunity to do in life. So it's a pretty special thing to be able to have that balance.
Well, where can folks find out more about what you do if they're interested in getting in touch?
Yeah. So, like I said, my company is the Serrata International Cycling Institute. It's the serratacyclinginstitute.com. You can get a hold of me directly through that website. There's also, I also work for Spalding Rehabilitation Hospital, and I run the cycling medicine program with my colleague Dana Kotler there, so that I can be found through the Spalding websites. And that's where I'm doing a lot of my treatment of cyclists. So.
Well, Greg, I appreciate you coming on and telling just a little bit about that wild adventure. I was looking up some pictures of the area you were talking about while you were talking, and I bet it just seemed unreal some of the times you were riding. It's beautiful. The Himalayas are just larger than life. So cool. And so to have those experiences just sounds like, to be able to do it now for a living too.
I appreciate you. I enjoy what you do and bringing these stories to a larger public, and inspiring people to create their own adventures is a really powerful thing, and you should be commended for that. So thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
It's my pleasure, Greg. It was some cool stories, that's for sure, and that's what it's all about. So, well, I'll keep you posted when it comes out. We'll stay in touch about that, but until then, man, take care of yourself and let me know if there's anything I can do for you.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, have a good night.
You too.
Right,
take care.
Bye. First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to growing the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.